Drink beer. Think beer. You're listening to Brew Bloods.
24 hours in a day, 24 beers in a case. Coincidence?
Haha.
That from British comedian Stephen Wright.
You know this guy?
I do know this guy.
Okay.
Episode 170.
Personally, or
Yes, we're quite. We're more than bosom buddies.
you guys are tight?
We're more than whatever's beyond bosom buddies. That's what we are. Episode 117
Scissor
of Brew
sisters?
Bloods. Yeah, exactly. But it's only when we
Is
dress.
that offensive? I don't know.
It's only when we dress. No, you're talking about the band, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
When we dress like the band, Scissor Sisters.
Okay, fair enough.
Which means you dress up like Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari from Bosom Buddies.
Right. So it ties back to bosom
Yeah.
buddies.
And then we throw
That's
on
the important thing.
And then we throw on some strap-ons and drink some beer.
Yeah, of course.
Let's talk some news. A little bit of brews in the news.
The holder that holds the beer, you strap it onto yourself.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
just making sure people
It's
know.
the beer hat that holds the beer. you
Right,
know,
exactly.
On each side.
Yeah,
holds
you
one
strap
can
that on
each.
your head.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what in the beer industry we call a strap-on.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Gotta-
some people don't know the shorthand.
I know.
You get new listeners every week.
Right.
I want to make sure they know.
It's beer industry talk.
Right,
hot,
exactly.
Hot industry talk.
It's way inside baseball
Yeah.
or inside beer or whatever.
That's what you would have heard last week in the post-game show from the Franconi interview.
Yeah.
That was part of that.
Yeah, we
Him
talked about all the beer terms,
Right,
and that one
exactly,
came up.
exactly.
Yes. So, to continue on with the constant theme that we brought up on the show, maybe not constant, but we brought it up a lot,
Going to continue on now.
yeah, is the fact that beer sales seem to be a little bit in trouble. And this actually comes from vinepair.com, if that is a real site. And they say that the beer options have actually decreased for the first time in 5 years on shelves. So the diversity of different types of craft beers and things like that, it's not... Although craft breweries continue to grow, the options on the shelf are actually starting to decrease a little bit.
And I assume that's just because they had a glut of beer, and so maybe retailers are ordering less?
Well, they're saying it's actually a decrease overall of 5.7% from their absolute peak. And they're saying that there's so many macro brewers that are holding on to shelf space, and they're expanding their portfolios with things like Goose Island, 10 Barrel, things like that.
So they're shoving out the little guy.
They're keeping the little guy off the shelf because they already have all their, rows and rows and rows of Bud Light, and then on top of that, they're going to throw their craft selections in, and so there's a limited space for all these other breweries to come in. And they've actually started to take more space based on the fact that they have all these craft beer names.
So I actually don't know from the store, because, in all of our industry talk last week about strap-ons,
Right.
we didn't get into is how you get on a shelf, right? And
Yeah.
and I actually don't know that side of it at all. So can they go to the distributor and say, I want to buy more shelf space for my brands? How does that work? I have no idea.
Well, yeah, because the larger...
Maybe we should talk to a distributor sometime, but...
Right, but I know the larger labels have better relationships with distributors because they give them more money.
Right.
So they say, okay, you have X amount of SKUs, and if they say, oh, we bought these 4 other craft beer types, we want to carry everything that they're doing in their portfolio, they say, oh, okay, well, there's 5 more SKUs for Goose, and there's 5 more SKUs for Breckenridge, or whatever. I also like talking about this story because a lot of times we defend and say, oh, whatever, some Budweiser comes in and buys them. Who really cares about that? It's not, as long as they don't mess with the beer. Well, these kind of things are kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
because this does wedge out,
this is
other
the
good
dickish end
options.
of what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Which, of course, money talks, but, still, you want to have the more diversity, especially with more craft breweries coming up. Another thing they do mention in this article, though, which is something we talked about a little bit back when we had Bearded Lady on, and we've brought it up a couple other times, and that's just the fact that maybe, and actually Win Bims talked about this a little bit too, the fact that maybe these craft breweries that are distributing to stores, maybe the newer ones are going to not aim for that, and they're going to aim for being local. And that's one thing they mentioned in here is that 80% of Americans live within 10 miles of a craft brewery now. That's been the explosion.
Right.
And that's a lot. You're talking about maybe the 20% that live out in, the middle of nowhere, Northwest, or not even Northwest, but, like Montana, Wyoming. Maybe those people don't all have craft breweries.
Yeah.
But, that's a lot of local options, too. So maybe the shelf isn't as big of a deal, but that's still a bad trend to see these bigger guys pushing people out.
I would have to guess that a majority of beer is probably still sold at the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they maintain major control of that, I do wonder, because never worked in a grocery store, never worked for a distributor, how much does
that is a brag.
How much does like a grocery store, the guy who stocks the shelves at your local Kroger or Tom Thumb or Ralph's, How much does he have? The guy who runs the store, the manager, does he have say, I want X number or X percentage of craft beer in my store as opposed to a macro?
I don't think they have much say about it at all.
Or even the higher ups. Is it all up to the distributor?
Well, I'm sure Kroger says, let's just take Kroger for an example. I'm sure they say we have X amount of shelf space and who's bidding on what, it would be my assumption. And they say, okay, yeah, I want to buy into perpetuity these number of shelves,
right,
and I want this eye level shelf, and that's where I want all my Budweiser to be. Yeah. And I don't think the local store managers, even the regional managers, have much control over that. I'm sure that goes up the corporate chain, especially with large contracts like Miller and Budweiser and, I don't know, probably Betty Crocker or anything else too. They all do that on every shelf. But yeah, I don't think that they have any control over that kind of stuff at all.
I'm just wondering how Tupps, because they've done really well for themselves by at Target having a giant circular display that's actually off the beer. It's not even on the beer aisle. It's outside the beer aisle. And but you don't see that at you go to a Mott's or a Piggly Wiggly. You don't see that.
As I often do.
Yeah. You don't see that.
Yeah, that's just what I've gleaned. I don't know that that's all exactly accurate.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how that works.
Yeah, and we know someone that's a distributor. We could actually maybe get them on sometime to talk to that. Maybe just do a shorty if nothing else. And it'd be interesting to get a little inside look at that because I'm with you. I'd like to know more.
I'm interested in the politics of distributorship of how all that works because there's got to be a lot of I don't know. It seems like it's ripe for backroom deals in some form or fashion.
Well, yeah, you have that, and then you also have the whole element, like we talked about with some people like Lakewood that gave up their distribution to somebody else, and then they have concerns about how is the distributor displaying them,
right?
That kind of thing, and that's kind of interesting too. How many people feel like there's been a big decrease when they actually have the distributors start doing it for them? And another thing we didn't really ask Dennis about last week too, that's kind of interesting in the distribution realm. And we talked to Peticolas about this, Michael, about this before, is the fact that Dennis decided to keep the distribution in McKinney, but get rid of the other distribution.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious about that, how that's actually working out for him. And it's just so weird. The distribution laws here are just so weird. The fact that you can, you give up your rights permanently, but you can keep little pieces of them here and there.
Yeah.
I think Michael said he could keep the AAC to himself, even though he could give up other distribution rights or something like that. I know he's kept his so far, to my understanding. But
it's really strange here.
Yeah, Texas is just really strange.
Yeah.
Really, really strange on that front.
It's a swamp full of BS.
It definitely is.
Drain the swamp.
Right, exactly. I would say our number one talked about style of beer on this show would probably be IPAs, at least on my end.
Well, it's been the hot new fashion trend for a number of years now. I guess it's not really hot anymore, but
it's simmered for a long time.
It kind of parallels the rise of the beard, the rise of the IPA. Like beer, beards have been a big fashion trend in the past few years. So have IPAs. Maybe there's a link there.
Yeah, and just the rise of the craft beer in general, the IPA seems to be the one that sticks out because it's the most different from the other ones, I would say. I mean, it's gotten more experimental, but if you're just talking about the baseline types, a darker standard Dunkel style beer or something it's different.
But IPAs have such a different flavor palette.
Yeah, but IPAs, that's like the sign of being a craft guy, especially like in the late aughts or maybe early tens. I don't know that that's still the case, but that definitely was at one point. But Mercury News posted an article talking about, it's time to try some other things other than IPAs. And they're making some arguments about the different styles that have made pushes lately, like Saisons, craft beer lagers, more of the Pilsner style lagers, sour beers, even some ones like Ghosts, which I didn't realize those were actually German-based. I should have, but I'd never made that connection because I'm dumb. But we should have asked Dennis if he's ever going to plan on making one of those.
That's true.
I mean, it does go to the German roots.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea that craft beer is trying to expand out of just the IPA being the main focus. It'd be nice to have. And my palate's changed a little bit too. I'm sure yours has as well. We've talked to that.
Nope, all I drink is wheat beer.
Yeah, exactly. But even things like Saisons, at first I used to hate those.
Yeah.
But now I actually like Saisons quite a bit.
Me too. I still can't say that I like lagers.
No, lager's one I can't get to. I can't get myself to like. I've tried several different ones.
I'm willing to try them, to keep trying them. I'm bound to find one I like eventually.
Some of the black lagers are not terrible, but I still don't even really like those.
Yeah.
It's something about that lager yeast. It just has a specific flavor. I know there's different yeast now, and there's something about it, though. I can't explain it. It's not quite like a Belgian, but it's something in that realm that tastes kind of drying and earthy, and I don't know what it is. I don't like it. I like the ales much better.
I would say that as far as the sort of badge of honor of the craft beer drinker now is probably the wildly fermented beers and the sours. It's kind of taken the place. I don't want to say it's taken the place of the IPA because it hasn't as far as sales go.
Yeah,
but as far as saying, if you want to stand out in a crowd and say, I'm a craft beer guy, a craft beer snob, maybe.
Right. Hey, nice transition.
To make a tease to the next segment, that's probably what you're going to proclaim first, instead of saying, hey, I'm an IPA guy, as you used to do all the time, as soon as you met somebody.
Right. That was my second factoid about myself.
Hey, my name's Dirty Dustin. I'm an IPA guy. Now you introduce yourself by saying, hey, I'm into wildly fermented beer.
Yeah, exactly. I have this beer podcast, so I know all about beer. That's how I do it.
But no, I do think that's kind of... I think that's probably become a bit of a badge of honor, you know? I mean, you think about, like, the rise of Jester King.
Right.
And how they've gotten into the farmhouse and the wild ales and all that. I think that...
The green bottles with the skunky wildness.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely, like, they are, like, the icon of the craft beer badge.
I would say
for that type of guy, right? And I'm not saying they have bad beers, because they... Not by any stretch, but I'm just saying they get out and they're get experimental, and...
yeah, and, you know, a couple of new craft beer or craft breweries that have opened up. I'm trying to think of the one we went to in Arlington. That
Wild Acre.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Wild Acre though. It was one of the ones we did on the beer bus.
Yeah, that was Wild Acre.
Yeah, we went to Wild Acre, but maybe that is. But anyway, the one that was doing just IPAs and sours. That was it.
Pretty sure that was Wild Acre.
Okay, maybe it's Wild Acre. We'll leave it at Wild Acre.
I could be wrong, but I think it's. Oh wait, you're thinking of Collective?
Not Collective either. That's downtown Fort Worth. I'm thinking of the one that was in Arlington on Division Street, but I cannot think of the name.
Division Brewing?
That's it. Hey, there we go. Anyway, so stupid.
Oh, how the brain misfires.
Yeah. But anyway, Division, for example, they're just doing IPAs and they're doing sours, you know, and that's... I don't think somebody would have done that opening up in the, you know, Rar Franconia era.
No.
You know, they would have tried to do much more wide variety of things, and it's or even the first wave around here in, you know, 2012, 2013.
I think in the day you had to be everything to everybody, but now I think with the squeezing the market, as we just talked about, I think some people are finding success in specialization. Like I mentioned it before, there's a brewery in Denver that they only do red ales, variations on red ales, and they're pretty dang tasty.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm not saying wrong with it.
I'd rather find a niche than beat something to everybody.
Chances are you're not going to become Jester King and become wildly famous.
Right.
But you can probably carve out a nice niche for yourself and still make a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you may not ever get famous. Chances are, I mean, it's hard to become, you know, sales leader as it is, but you can probably make a nice little name for yourself. Like Collective's making a great name for themselves with like experimental, crazy beers.
Yeah.
You know, and Land Division,
sours especially.
Yeah, and sours, yeah.
I haven't seen Division. You know, Division might be one of those. It's one of the smaller Arlington area type things too. I don't know how much distribution they have.
I don't see them around Dallas hardly at all. I think I've seen them on a tap at Liquid Growler before.
Yeah, that
maybe
makes
Craft
sense.
Craft and Growler, but yeah, it's like there's. I don't think they can or bottle. So
yeah, I don't think
they're kind of
so
hard
either.
to find around here.
But, you know, and again, that's a good example. That's, you know, whatever wave you want to say, a fifth or sixth or seventh wave brewery. And, you know, they're not pushing the big distribution like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think it's good. And a lot like food, I think it's, you know, we talked about our evolving palates. It's just like food. Like every few years I'll go back and try things. Like I used to despise broccoli. Like I used to literally vomit every time I would eat broccoli.
All over the place.
Yeah, all
just
over the
like
place.
if you had a lemon cruller.
I will still do that. But now I eat broccoli 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You know, I find broccoli quite tasty. I still don't like pickles. But I will, every few years, I'll retry them just to see if my taste palette has changed. And I think it's the same thing with beers. Like, you owe it to especially if you really respect the nature of craft beer, I think you owe it to yourself and you owe it to brewers you respect to try their new stuff, to try the new styles once in a while, because you never know what you're going to find that maybe you thought you would hate and you actually loved. And maybe you found a whole new taste window a whole new stroke of the rainbow that you can play with.
And I'm bad about that too. If I've had something and I'm like, meh, and I associate that with that brewery, I don't give them another chance, and
which is why
it's probably not fair.
Don't typically go for pilsners, and I don't typically go for lagers, and it just because I have just such a meh history on them.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's people out there doing some wonderful pilsners, and I would love to taste them.
Yeah,
if I had the reassurance of a nice Untapped rating.
Right, exactly.
Beer snobs,
absolutely.
So speaking of beer snobs, after this, we're going to talk about the rise of the beer snob.
Hey guys, Josh here, just to let you know, to remind you, to get the word out, to put it in your brain, that no matter when you're listening to this podcast, Thursday is right around the corner. What's so significant about Thursday? Well, at Thursday at noon, you get to tune in and listen live to Liquid Lunch. Join myself and Catherine Contreras from She's Crafty Podcast as we join forces to bring you Texas's live midday craft beer show. It's the only one like it out there in the entire world. We're live. We take your calls at 713-678-0070. We have on the best guests in the craft beer world from the state of Texas and beyond, and it's just a fun time. You'll hear what you eating, what you drinking. We'll get the latest in news and craft beer goings-ons, promotions of all the latest happenings, and you can be a part of the show with us each and every Thursday at noon. LiquidLunchShow.com is where we're located. Also on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, streaming live video and audio. Your choice. Come join the party. Kick off the weekend, Thursday at noon. LiquidLunchShow.com. That's Liquid Lunch. We'll see you there.
Hooray for beer!
We've seen something arise in the last few years with the advent of craft beer. I think with the rise of any trend, you're going to see a rise of arrogant, snobbish people. And what we're talking about today is the rise of the craft beer snob.
Right. Now, this used to be, in the 80s and 90s, the wine snob.
Right.
Go watch an episode of Frasier. Those guys at the wine club, that's what it used to be.
And he always looked down upon his dad to drink Ballantine.
Absolutely, yeah. And because that was about all there probably was. I don't know if even Seattle in 1993 had too many craft beer options.
Even though on Cheers, Frasier was a regular at the bar
right.
and drank beer in every episode.
Yeah, I know.
In the turn to Frasier, they made him a wine snob, so...
Yeah, well, John Mahoney was also on Cheers too, so that's a totally
true.
different character. So
that's true.
There's a little instability there.
Wasn't he a dying piano player or something like that?
Not a dying one. He was writing a jingle for Cheers, apparently, that Rebecca hired him to do. His name was Cy something, very unstable. He even had a debate with Frasier about Old MacDonald, which made it even more unstable.
It's unstable. It's very unstable.
Yes. But in any case, snobbery is abound in this area, just like it is with wine. I'd say the wine one has continued, but, beer used to be you just go to the bar and say, give me a beer, and giving me a beer meant whatever was on tap. There was one or two taps, and they were probably both lager, and you just said, give me a beer, and that was it. But nowadays, it's definitely evolved. It's become, what's the aroma, what's the mouthfeel, what's the appearance, and... I think that the Boston Globe article here, this was put together between the Boston Globe and Esquire. I pulled from both of these for this segment, and I think one quote that they made was really good, was basically if the film Sideways in 2004 had come out now, instead of being I'm not drinking a Blanken Merlot, it'd be I'm not drinking a Blanken Blue Moon. And it'd be a buddy comedy about going to a bunch of craft breweries. Yeah, and I could totally see that.
Would it be Blue Moon because that wasn't really a brand? Wouldn't it be, just to get nerdy about it, wouldn't it be... It's like I'm not drinking a effing porter or something like that.
Well, if you're talking about macro versus micro, though, or macro versus craft, I know it's not exactly the same thing.
I guess, but is Merlot really macro? It's a type. Yeah.
No, you're right. But I'm saying I think they're equating that argument to macro versus craft instead of.
I was thinking more
style.
On whatever.
Whatever. I don't know. So being in this area like we've been doing this podcast for a bit. we definitely had our run of being craft beer snobs ourselves. We've done several episodes where we review things. We get very meticulous about reviewing things. Kind of drifted away from that lately, and probably plan on staying away from that for the most part. But I think there are different levels for sure, and we're going to go through a list that Thrillist put together too of the types of beer snobs.
And I just want to comment on what you said. Like, we haven't really talked about it on the show, and the reason I think is because for me, and I think this is like particularly timely, is not to say I'm not still a snob in some ways. I'm sure I am. We'll find out, after we go through this. But
right.
I think for me, not that I don't still criticize beer when it's bad or when it's think about it when it's good, because I do, absolutely.
Sure.
We all have our preferences. We all find things we like and don't like. But I think what I found myself doing was, it's much like we used to do movie reviews and TV reviews back when before there was a craft beer industry. We were in the early days, the early .com days of doing movie and TV reviews, and I don't think it's something we ever talked about. And we used to go to, you more than me, but I mean, I would go to a lot of movie screenings with you. So much so that we were going to 2 or 3 a week sometimes. Yep. And you find out, like, I think what I found for me with movies and TV, because I did more TV, the more of the TV side back in the day, I found that I was enjoying the product less and less, like just from a purely visceral, experiential level. Because when you start criticizing, like really thinking about it, you really start to pick apart the details, and I think I found less and less enjoyment from the products.
Yeah, it makes it more of a chore.
Yeah.
Also, because movie watching and beer drinking should be more fun.
Yes, absolutely.
And this makes you more of, if you're not a cicerone or I don't know, then your critique for not having the proper critiques, but at the same time you also so you take that, and then at the same time you're, like you said, you're trying to find ways to be critical of something when other times you might just be like, oh, it says a couple of these notes, it's tasty or whatever. You don't want to sound like 5 out of 5 guy every time you're doing a review. Right. And so
and conversely, I don't want to always be 1 out of 5 guy.
Right, exactly.
And for me, I think what I got tired of was not that I wasn't enjoying beer, but I think I was finding myself a little less willing to experiment. And I was finding myself a little too critical, and sometimes that was coming out through the show. I think there were particular episodes after we recorded, I'm like, why did I say that? Like, I still put them out because it's our show, but I was way too hyperbolic on that. Sometimes it was trying to be funny. Sometimes I think it's generally what I was feeling.
Yeah, sure.
But then I kind of pulled back, like, within the last couple months, I'm just like, I need to, like, tap the brakes. Like, I don't think I'm enjoying this as much. Like, I need to, and to use the term of the show, I need to be less of a snob about it. So, we talked about this, and this is one we've kind of gotten away from reviews, and I think it's a better show for it. I think we want to do more lifestyle, like celebrate beer.
Right.
As opposed to
beer and beer culture, the things around it. Yeah.
Celebrate, even though we're going to demonize some people today. But celebrate the culture,
right.
And appreciate what we have in front of our mouths.
So we can speak to this, because we suffered through being snobs, for sure. We
have been those people.
And we still have elements of that, of course, I'm sure. But
everybody, yes, absolutely.
And we're going to go through some of these things where I'm going to say I don't necessarily agree with this Thrillist list or with what they say in these articles, but some of these things are dead on, and it's annoying. I know it's annoying to brewers as well, and it's kind of unfortunate that it's come to this in some ways. But
that's the nature of any fashionable sector. Like, even within, like, I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I mean, there are elitist sci-fi snobs within nerddom.
Yeah,
that if you don't like this particular property or you don't like it the right way,
right?
I mean, I love our friend Billy a lot, but we agree a lot on a lot of things. But when it comes to Star Trek, I'm a lot more open-minded than he is about changes that are being made.
Sure,
something like that. And I think even Billy would tell you he's probably a little too hypercritical at times.
Sure,
but that's just the way it goes. And I think any popular sector, you're going to find the elitists within it.
Right. In this Esquire article, they go through several different elements that are the most annoying things about beer snobs. They're very similar to the Thrillist list, so I think maybe it'd probably be good. The only one I want to point out here that they point out that the Thrillist list is not, and this has been a bad trend, I think, and that is the people that make a large production out of drain pouring beers.
Yeah.
And like they note in this article,
we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, and like they note in this article, though, it's the more highly regarded the beer is, the more of a production people make about making it a drain pour and celebrating the fact that they made it a drain pour, and that's really annoying.
It is.
Just because your particular palate doesn't like that particular beer that time doesn't mean, the thousands of other people that have rated it a 98 on Beer Advocate and, a 99 on whatever other forum or Untappd gets 4 out of 5. Doesn't make you cooler for thinking that your palate doesn't think it's that good, and I'm going to show everybody that I drain pour it, or that everybody else is an idiot. It really annoys me that, again, that's kind of why we got away from the reviews, because I like the idea of celebrating the culture around this and celebrating the wide varieties of beer that exist.
And I want to celebrate the artists and the entrepreneurs that make the beer.
And I recognize I don't like we've talked, I don't like lagers. I'm not going to go get the highest rated lager and drain pour it in front of everybody just to prove how cool I am. That oh, look at me drain pouring a lager. Yeah. You idiots that drink lager. Like it gives a really bad vibe to the whole. Something that should be more communal. Like craft beer shouldn't be so confrontational.
Absolutely, I agree.
we're kind of a small community as is.
Yeah, yeah, I agree completely. And I was thinking about Frasier a second ago. I was thinking if the Frasier were still on the air today, they would have a Frasier Niles Go Drink Some Craft Beer episode, and how
probably
they would hate it at first and demonize it, and then Frasier Niles would come around to being craft beer drinkers, or at least acknowledging that they have some value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
So this list from Thrillist is the 19 types of beer snobs ranked by obnoxiousness from 19 to 1.
And this originally, along with the Boston Globe article, came out mid-2016, but Thrillist has actually updated it as of this month. So I don't know what they changed from before, but this is a recent list.
And I think they've done a pretty good job of it. I think it's still relevant, even if most of it was comprised in 2016. I think it's still quite relevant today.
Absolutely.
So the first thing they have is the evangelist, the person that's always looking to win a few converts. The evangelist brings a few choice selections and a hefty supply of tasting glasses to any social gathering. So this is the guy that, rather than just bringing his own six-pack of whatever, he's going to bring a variety of bottles and expect everybody to do a bottle share with him, even if it's not a bottle share event.
Right, and he's got to bring the coolest thing that's available that you probably haven't had. And, this is one that, in the right situation, that's fine.
I think if it's set up to be a bottle share.
Or even if it's just a large gathering that, maybe if you go to a friend's house that's having a Halloween party, let's say, or something like that. I don't know, just something that people do. Then, if you bring a beer and you want to say, hey, a couple people want to try this, you got beer friends there, that's fine. Yeah. It's when you take it to the extent of you go to somebody that's over there drinking Budweiser or is drinking, some, I don't know, a white wine or something, and you're like, why are you drinking that? You should be drinking this. That's when it gets annoying. If you want to keep it to your beer friends, that's fine. But doing that's when it gets really aggravating.
Yeah, I agree. Luckily, we don't go to too many parties anymore. We're getting too old for that S.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when you're 40, you don't do that as much.
That's right.
Next up is the sampler, and they say, and no matter the situation, samplers always request a preview taste at the bar in order to make an informed decision. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
I think it depends. Again, it depends on context, right? I don't like the few bars I've been to that aren't craft beer bars, because I just don't go hanging at bars anymore. I don't see that a lot of bars. Where I see that is at like growler shops. But then again, growler shops are kind of set up for that. Now, I think there is a limit. I think you should not be able to have, let's say... You
don't sample all 30.
Yeah, you can't sample all 30. I think you should maybe request no more than 2 samples at a time, maybe 3 at the outside. Sure. But you should order, if you want samples of 3 different beers, you damn better order all 3 of them at the same time. All 3 samples. Don't sample one and... Oh, now I want to try this one. Now I want to try this one. And, it takes... Sometimes it takes a good bit of time just to get a sample, because maybe they've blown a keg. Maybe they're serving other customers.
Well, on top of that, too, also plan on buying a full beer of something.
Yes.
Have something that you like, even if you don't like the samples, and go, oh, okay, I'll go with that. It's a real jerk move to go in there and have a couple samples and basically say, everything you have here sucks.
Yeah,
not gonna have any
I don't
of
think
it.
I've ever seen that. But
I know. But
I have seen the guy who will take 1 sample at a time and continue to request more samples.
Yeah.
That is deplorable.
That's part of the basket.
He's leading. He's at the top of the basket.
Absolutely.
The top of the heap of the basket of deplorables.
Yeah.
He's exactly what Hillary was talking about.
Right.
So there's the guy that I don't think we've been to too many, if any, release parties. Oh, I guess we've been to a couple of Lake ones, but this guy is the life of the release party, and I've never been to one of these release parties where people are camping out.
Yeah.
But it's the guy that you wonder, where does he have time in his day to sit around and, stand in line? That's I have to ask this question a lot about, the Jester King special releases, like the Spawn release or whatever their special release of the month is.
Well, really, frankly, the Goose Island thing's pretty close to
Goose Island. It's like, where do the people have time to camp out for these releases all the time? Like, people will wait for days to do this.
Or at least several hours.
Yeah.
Either way, it's, yeah.
And I don't know what, I don't know about the Three Floyds, the Dark Lord Day, or, I don't know what it's like up in the Russian River country with Pliny the Younger. I just know about Jester King. I see it because on our local Texas groups, people desperately like, oh, let's caravan together. And I have to think about, I'm sure you're having a good time. I'm sure the release lines are long. I can only think about how much time am I wasting by being here? What other things could I be doing by not sitting in this onion crotch producing heat?
Right.
Just for a beer that I might have a chance to get.
Right.
Especially if they're in one of those lottery ticket systems. Like,
yeah, you're not even guaranteed.
You might not even be guaranteed to get it.
I got annoyed when we went to one local establishment and did the lottery system for a variation of the Bourbon County.
Yeah.
That was the one and only time I've ever done that, and it may be the only time I ever do that, because we got lucky because I happened to actually get drawn for it. But if I hadn't gotten that, oh my gosh, even waiting out there for like 2 hours would have been really annoyed.
Yeah.
See, we've done snobbery things.
We have. I just like stuff like that. I've lost all desire to do.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, back before you could buy concert tickets online, or like the only thing I ever waited in line for movies, for instance, where you could buy movie tickets online, was when they re-released Star Wars in the theaters back in 97?
Yeah.
96, 97? I skipped school just to get that. But that's the only time in my life I've ever done something like that. I have no desire to stand in giant lines to get to access some product.
I agree. There's probably something similar to it somewhere else, including the beer, the specialty beer that you're getting.
If you enjoy that, God love you. Have at it. I just don't have any desire. I'm more than willing. I will pay you $20 to get me a bottle of that. And I will pay you $20 to wait in line for me.
Yeah.
And if you can get me a bottle of that, fantastic. I just have no desire. Just like I don't want to go camping either. I don't want to sit I have no desire to set up a tent.
Yeah.
And, sleep on rocks. It's just, I just got no desire, man. I've lost all my willpower for that.
Up next is the Barrel Baron, which basically boils down to the fact that if something is not brandy barrel, bourbon barreled, or oak barrel aged of some sort, and it's not 30%, it's kind of like the Prairie Artisan has kind of built their whole brewery around this concept, haven't they? Well, that's true, and the brewery does it all. The brewery, yeah, and a lot of people do that.
The brewery confusingly named the brewery,
exactly, yeah. So basically, it's saying that this guy has to have stuff that's aged, or else it sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've really come across anybody that says it has to be barrel aged or it sucks. But if you do exist, you are definitely a snob and a tool.
Yeah, and you're missing out.
Because there's plenty of other things that are not barrel aged.
They're fantastic beers, don't get me wrong. But
sure, no, barrel aging is great and it tastes great, but it's not the only thing out there for sure.
And it's not a beer I want all the time because it's usually pretty heavy and pretty flavor forward. So
yeah, when you're sunning out by the pool, you don't want one of those, right? When it's 105 degrees.
Exactly.
You're out there working on your tan.
The next one is The Trader, coming in at number 15. These are the guys who parlayed a Surly Darkness and a Dark Lord into a Chocolate Rain, which combined with some Hill Farmstead stuff he traded for last summer to land an apple brandy barrel-aged Hunapu. I still don't know how you say that brewery's name. I think I'm saying it wrong. That's damn near impossible to find. Has yet to try any of these beers, actually. But anyways, the guy who's they're basically... I don't know if they have... I think they have in down here the Whalers also, but I think you could almost combine this with the Whalers. People that are so disparate to find these beers. In this case, it's the guy that loves to talk about the trades he made. It's like a baseball trade or something. Yeah. If you want to talk about the time that the Cowboys gave up, I was going to say Warren Moon, but he was a Houston Oiler. What was his name in the 80s?
The time that the Cowboys traded Herschel Walker.
It's like Warren Moon. Yeah. Herschel Walker, and then got all those draft picks that led to Super Bowls.
Yeah.
It's like that type of. It's like us listening to like an NFL draft or something. That's just like, oh god, just go away. Got no desire.
Yeah, if you want to trade, that's fine. I know like our buddy on Twitter, Beers and Movies, does some of that.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
But to talk about it, and
yeah, but he also doesn't post a whole lot. Well, he brags a little bit when he gets a shipment. But overall, he doesn't like sit there and talk about it all the time.
Yes, yes. I mean, he posts his victory hauls, which I would too probably.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, that's bragging about your beer trades is like bragging about your fantasy football team.
Yeah.
It's about as annoying. You're the only one that cares, and nobody else wants to hear about it.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants fantasy football talk. Nobody wants
exactly. Nobody
beer
wants
trade
to know
talk.
That. Yeah, exactly.
Boy, there's nothing bigger than being fantasy football talk, except maybe fantasy basketball or fantasy hockey talk.
Any fantasy team is not something we need to talk about.
Stupid, and it needs to go away.
At least don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Next up is the Sudden True Believer. The speed with which the Sudden True Believer transformed from liking to spice up the usual rotation of domestics with a Sam Adams on occasion to dividing the day equally between keeping up with Untapped and pricing beer fridges on eBay. So basically, it's somebody that just all of a sudden got into craft beer and they love it and they hate everything that's not craft beer.
Basically, they found Jesus for beer.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know if I mind that person as much. Of the offenders on the list, that's the least offensive for sure. As long as they're not whipping somebody about it, but. It's one of those things that if you have transitioned to another, you like craft beer and you don't like the domestics anymore, and you want to talk a little bit to that, I don't know that that's necessarily the worst thing.
I mean, I guess it depends, like what level. Like if they're constantly talking about it, if they're going to be proselytizing to you about craft beer, let's say,
yeah,
or whatever the subject is, yeah, that can get old. If they if they find Jesus beer in their hearts, they have a beer-shaped hole in their heart, and it gets filled with
the Jesus
a Prairie Artisan Prairie Bomb or something. Yeah. Fantastic. But when it's just like the Jehovah's Witnesses that come to your door. Yeah, I'm going to shoo you away. Go away. I don't want to talk to you. I don't care that you're bringing the kids out. That's shameful, and you should go away.
Right.
Yeah, that's bad. I mean, I don't know if this person deserves to be that high on the list because they don't. I think they need to qualify it more to be number 14. But there's nothing wrong with a person being converted to something like craft beer.
It's two guys sitting here with beer fridges,
Yes. Absolutely. So Captain Ahab, I guess we just talked about this, but it's the whalers, the people that all they want to talk about is whaling beer, and I think you find this... I don't know if it's declined at all, because I think I've stopped paying attention as much, but you can definitely find it on Reddit, people seeking this or that, beer advocate, the beer trading... And people waiting in line for release day stuff. Yeah,
that appears to be a uniquely U.S. thing, too.
Yeah.
Or at least more so. That's not as common in the Euro markets. And I don't know, it's just...
I mean, based on what Dennis from Frank County said last week, yeah, absolutely.
And it's just kind of annoying. It's a little bit annoying that... I'm not saying that every brewery can make as much beer as possible to keep up with demand all the time. But I also think that there is some intentional whaling done, which is the part that annoys me too. And it's on both sides. I mean, it's the brewery is limiting the supply, and then the people that chase it.
Yeah,
it's just kind of I don't know. The whole thing's kind of annoying to me. Just make a lot of beer, or if there is a whale, try to find something that's similar to that too, and say, well, here's. Much like we've talked about before, I think we talked about here, the Big Bad Baptist versus the KBS.
Right.
Very similar beer. Big Bad Baptist is all over the place.
Yeah. What I do get annoyed by is what seems to be artificial limitation of beer supply. Like, you can kind of tell if a certain brewery of a certain size, how much beer they can put out.
Right.
And their supply is drastically below that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is annoying.
Yeah.
Intentionally provoking whaling.
Yeah,
I despise that so much.
Oh man, the thing just readjusted. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Number 12 on the list is the glassware obsessive, and that's basically somebody that says certain glasses have to be used for certain beers. This is another one I'm not too offended by because there are actually differences in different glassware for different beers.
Yeah, there are.
I think that's more factual than it is annoying. That's just some IPA glass works better for IPAs. And
I gotta admit, I've never met anybody that's gonna knock the glass out of your hand if you're drinking it out of the right glass. Now, I have seen somebody. I know they're exaggerating for effect here, but somebody that's gonna yell at you. But we've been the people like. Yeah, our buddy Thomas complains about this, that we want to drink our IPAs out of IPA glasses, or we want to drink our barrel-aged beers out of tulip glasses, or whatever, what have you. Or I'm going to drink my poured out of shaker if I want to.
But that actually suits.
But it does. It does.
The best.
It depends. If you're looking for the optimal drinking experience, and you're kind of into those qualities, then put it in the right glass.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
if you're Joe Sixpack, drinking your Coors, or you just came to Jesus about IPAs, I'm not going to smack it out of your hand.
Right, exactly.
If we get into the subject and the subject is somehow broached about maybe he sees this fancy glass in my hand and he asks me, he sees my IPA glass that looks like a rigid female pleasure device, then maybe I'll explain.
With the tulip head on it.
Yeah,
Which I guess could be part of it.
Yeah. But if he asks about it, it's much like a preacher. I want the preacher to preach at me. I want to come to you for the word of Jesus.
Absolutely.
So the fresh head, which we've mentioned a particular incident on the show several times.
This one's horrible.
And it's the people pretending basically that something that is well within its aging limit is not fresh. And we've mentioned, again, like I said, we've mentioned this before, the Bell's release of Two Hearted. Somebody got on our local DFW Let's Talk craft beer group and complained that a Two Hearted was 30 days old?
I think it was 30 days, yeah.
30 days.
They're good for 90 days on the shelf.
Yeah.
Recommended by Bell's. And yeah, it was 30 days old, and they were complaining, how could Bell's send something so old to us?
Yeah, which is just ridiculous. And I would say that, I bet the brewers now are probably working on, getting IPAs to last even longer than that.
Yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, I just like the fact that in this, they happen to mention that someone says, that's 10 days old.
Yeah.
You need to get this one that was 20 minutes ago before someone sees you. Those people are that bad, though.
Yes, there are people that are that bad, absolutely. We've experienced them in the wild.
Next up is another one I don't think is a huge offender. It's the brewery fanboy. It's someone that has all kinds of hats, shirts, patches, buttons, etc., and then wants to strike up a conversation, see how many brewery owners they name drop within the first 3 minutes. That part's a little annoying, but if somebody's actually a fan of several breweries and they like them and they're wearing their swag and they're walking around as an advertisement for that brewery, I don't know that that's necessarily horrible.
I don't see that that's no different than wearing like a band T-shirt or maybe a T-shirt of your favorite TV show. If you want to wear your Charles in Charge T-shirt, have at it.
To me, it's no different. Yeah, it's no different than a band or a sports team shirt.
Yeah,
that's just what you're into.
Sports fans are the most egregious of that type of advertising.
Yeah.
For another entity, is they wear the jerseys everywhere. It's egregious.
Yeah.
And side note, why is it okay? It's not okay to wear a band's T-shirt to the concert of that band, but it's okay to wear a jersey of the sports team that you're a fan of to a sports event of that team.
As long as it's the sports jersey of the team that's playing.
I know. But I'm saying,
they say specifically to do, like, you could wear a concert shirt from another concert that's not the concert that you're going to.
Right.
But if you wear another team's jersey to a team event,
right,
then...
Especially if it's another sport.
Yeah.
That's chaos.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm going to wear a Chicago Cubs jersey or to NBA or a Sixers game or something.
Yeah.
I was going to say NBA Sixers, but
right.
It's kind of generic. But a Sixers game. A basketball Sixers game.
Yes. That's a big violation.
Yeah. But it's just funny, the contradictions there.
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
But back to drinking sports. The self-important homebrewer, and I'm not going to name names, but definitely run into these people that they only will drink homebrew.
Oh, yeah.
The people that everybody else's product is poor, everything else is mediocre, but if I make it myself, we've met these people before.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And, yeah, I just think you're missing out on the spice of life.
Right.
I think the main reason I don't think we make more beer, other than we're terrible at it, I think we get better, but it makes
Our last one was drinkable.
Yeah, it was. But it makes so much beer, and we don't drink beer that fast.
Right, exactly.
We had that pale or that summer ale for, months upon months.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, I can't store this anymore.
And we tried to give it away, and people wouldn't take it.
Yeah, people wouldn't take it. Tried to force it on them, and
oh, yeah.
They said no means no.
Next up is the group thinker. Thinking that a beer is pretty good, and then they go and look at Beer Advocate and Untapped and say, this is rated really low. I guess I don't know if I like it because there's something weird about it. That basically thinks that if the group doesn't like it and all the other... They're trying to live in the craft beer snob world, and They don't want to be left out as not being cool enough to be a snob.
They don't want their opinion invalidated, or they want to validate their opinion with the word of the masses. And if their opinion isn't valid, they will change their opinion to match that of the herd.
Which that doesn't just happen to beer. That happens in a lot of realms.
Music,
which is unfortunate.
I mean, it's funny. Like you see Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone was we heard about earlier. This Rolling Stone's getting sold, right?
Right.
And they were talking about how like they used to be super critical of bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd or Tom Petty.
Yeah.
But now, here 20 and 30 and 40 years later, if you read a Rolling Stone review of those bands, they're just heaping with praise. Or conversely, somebody that was a hot new act back in the day, they praised, maybe 3 albums down the road, they turn on them, and everybody else turns on them. You know, it's the same phenomena. It's the groupthink.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because nobody wants to be uncool and have an unpopular opinion, or a lot of people don't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't. Yeah. Number 7 is the trend chaser. So one summer it's all about Goza. The next summer it's about any IPA that isn't preceded by the words New England, which is something we're definitely seeing this year.
Yes.
And it just makes me laugh, and I've seen it several times on the local Facebook group, just because, you know, it's something I see all the time, is people like, when is a DFW brewery finally going to make a New England IPA? I think I've seen that 5-6 times in the last few months.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe they don't want to make a New England IPA. Maybe they will when they get around to it.
Yeah.
When it proves a very viable, like an actual, I mean, I know it's a trend, but...
Maybe just enjoy the IPAs that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, maybe there's a Texas IPA that needs to be made. Why are we so concerned with these New England IPAs?
And
maybe
West Coast IPAs are still good. They've been around forever, and they're
why don't
still
you acquire some New England IPAs from an actual New England brewery that makes some true New England IPAs?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you want these DFW brews to be something they're not?
You want Texas barbecue in Maine? No.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, get what's good here and get what's good there.
Yeah,
and don't worry about it.
Do you want barbecue anywhere else outside Texas? No, you don't.
Yeah, especially not up there.
Yeah. Do you want the Dallas barbecue up in New York? No, you don't.
No, you don't.
There's a little place called Dallas Barbecue. Last time I was there. No, you don't want it. It's not Dallas Barbecue.
Number 6 is The Professor, and I would say we have some personal interaction with this, but it's won't even listen to you at least if you're not at least taking Cicerone classes, and basically saying that somebody that just has general opinions is invalid because they don't know all the details and the ins and outs and all the lingo and everything under the sun. We've experienced that backlash back in our review days on this very show.
Yeah,
of basically saying these guys are idiots. They don't know all their terms off the top of their head. And
well, I remember a very, very striking one was somebody making fun of me because I didn't know, because I'd never heard it pronounced, and I had not bothered to look up the pronunciation. Shame on me, but I didn't know how to pronounce Brettanomyces.
Yeah,
God forbid, I don't know how to pronounce a complex word. Like somebody lashed out at me about that.
Yeah.
And I'm, our friend Thomas, back when I used to actually pay attention to sports, because I had an opinion about, let's say, a running back or something. I was an idiot. I'm a constant sports idiot. Because I don't know everything about sports. I'm a sports idiot. I can't have an opinion about a running back.
Right.
And that used to drive me up the wall. Like,
oh, I know. Yeah. It's just bad that the bullying in any realm is annoying. And that's basically what we're talking about, is the bully that thinks they know everything under the sun. And even if they ran into somebody that did know more than them, they would find some way to think that they didn't know more than them. Yeah. Nobody knows more than them. And so they're just looking to run somebody down.
You have to acknowledge that we're all ignorant in some fashion about something out there. And you may know something about one thing, but like, we're all students ultimately. Somebody's going to be more knowledgeable. We all have our masters.
Right.
And you got to acknowledge, like, we're here to teach each other, and there's a nice way to do it. And you can politely inform without, like, smacking them upside the head with your knowledge. It's oh god, it gets so old so fast.
And see, I want to skip just a little bit here. We can go back to number 5, but number 4 I think kind of fits in the same realm as number 6. It's the master debater that basically says, I tried something, I say it's pretty good, and then they come at you with, bro, you don't know anything about beer if you think that beer was good, because this, and this, the types of hops they use here and the brewing process they use there and the way they do fermentation there is terrible, and you just don't understand any of that, so you just don't have any kind of good palate and you're a moron. And that's the same. If somebody likes a beer, they like a beer. And that's basically what we did on the show when we were reviewing, was what do we like? What is our palate like? And I didn't really care about all the particulars that went along with that. If I wasn't saying the right terminology, or I didn't know everything about the creation of the original IPA and how this IPA differs from that, or what the evolution of that has been since that time, that I should really be picking up the subtle differences. It tastes good, and this is why it tastes good. Knew enough. I think we know enough to be able to intelligently talk about it. We might not know every single thing under the sun. Well, we don't know everything under the sun. Yeah. And that's okay. And that's the same thing for somebody.
We're not even
that just
level
picks up a
1
beer.
Cicerones, so.
Yeah, that's the same thing for somebody that just picks up a beer and says it's good. You don't need to debate them into for the rest of the night about how stupid they are. Just let them like what they like.
Yeah, I think it's like, when it comes to movies, like I think my wife still thinks that, you and I will go into way too much detail about some things we don't like and like about a movie.
Yeah.
She's always, she said before, like, you and Dustin just talk endlessly about movies, about what you like and don't like. Like, I don't understand how you can talk that much about a movie. Like, I just liked it or I don't like it. Like,
we can do that.
Yes, we can do that. It's the reason we have a show where we talk.
Right, exactly. 2 of them, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Number 5, going back to number 5, is the Music Man. And this is basically the people who accuse breweries of selling out, much like bands accuse bands of selling out when they go from tiny little independent labels to somebody, like Virgin Records or something. I don't know if Virgin Records is still around, but whoever. When breweries sell out some of their shares or whatever, they get accused of selling out here. And the last sentence here, I think, is apt, is that God forbid anyone expand beyond their early nano-brewing days and attempt to be able to afford a trip to the dentist or whatever.
Right.
I mean, nobody's in the business to lose money. And some people are in it to ultimately sell out, as we've talked about many times.
Sure.
They build themselves to sell. And there are some people that enter in for the love of the game, like I think Dennis from Franconia is and Michael Petticolis.
Yeah.
They're probably making a decent little living off their breweries, but they're not necessarily looking to strike it rich either.
Right. Unless maybe the right opportunity comes along.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
I know what you mean.
They didn't build themselves to sell.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Number 3 is the one-upper. You've got a good beer, that's great, but the one-upper has had one that's better. And I think this kind of falls in line with maybe this list is a little too expansive. Maybe
it's kind of like the debater.
Yeah, kind of the debater. Everybody's had something better than that.
Yeah.
And they're very smug about it. Yeah, I mean, I think we can probably just move on from that, but it falls in line with a lot of others.
Yeah, number 2 is the speculator. They say that this person got into beer a couple of years ago when the trend had peaked, and they were able to buy a bunch of beer and cellar it. And they talk more about, it's kind of similar to another item that was on this list earlier. They talk the trader. It's kind of similar to that, but they basically talk about the fact they have a bunch of stuff that they're cellaring and waiting on, and they probably have talked about it more than they've ever drank it. Which that's unfortunate if somebody's doing that. The same thing for the trader. If you're just trading to trade up and you're not trading to drink, then what are you doing here? And it's not. You're not probably making a bunch of money on this. Maybe you make a little bit, but that really perverts the whole spirit of the beer making, I think. Mm-hmm. And having craft beer available.
Yeah, I mean, beer is... I think that was always the great thing about it. It was almost in direct opposition to wine, is it was more collegiate, more fraternal, like it should be the common man's drink. It shouldn't be this highly speculative market.
There are some things that you age. I mean, like, you know, Dogfish will come out with the 120 or some of their newer stuff, and it says age as well. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with aging things that are supposed to age. I know that... even Deschutes had something a couple years ago. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago that was don't drink until a year later. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. You do a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's fine. But I guess I'm talking about more just the financial side.
But like,
people asking on Reddit /r/beer, like, oh, how much is this bottle of this worth? How many beers can I get in return for this? Like, come on, just either enjoy the beer and like drink it and enjoy it, or sell it to somebody for what it cost you plus shipping or something like that. I don't know. They're trying to make it a profit. It just drives me insane.
Yeah,
just enjoy it or don't. Either like the beer or don't.
Right.
And coming in at number 1 is the Condescender.
This one deserves to be number 1.
Yeah, it should. And kind of falls in line with the Drain Poor people. And they basically say that the Condescender is someone who gleefully looks down on anyone drinking a light beer, a former craft beer that's sold out, or even a craft beer that's not up to their exacting standards. When not directly shaming others when it comes to their choices, the Condescender can be seen engaging in political trolling on strangers' Facebook pages and correcting the grammar of casual acquaintances. I would say condescending. I think the Drain Poor guys, these are the condescenders, and they are a plague on the existence of craft beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's unfortunate because I think a lot of people have an impression that a lot of craft beer drinkers are those guys.
Yeah.
Because they're a small group, but they're a loud group, and it's just they're kind of the face in a lot of ways because they're the most vocal about it.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of unfortunate. Those guys, I think, are really the ones that... people like us, to an extent, they're picking on, but those guys are the ones that are really picking on with those Budweiser ads and stuff too. Yeah. Because everything has to be to their particular palate standards, and kind of like the rant I went on earlier about Drain pouring a perfectly good beer that a lot of people like that you just happen to not like, and then making a big production out of it. It's just unfortunate. It needs to be more harmonious. I mean, that's what we need to be doing here. We need to be supporting each other. It needs to be more. I would much prefer it to be more like the European model described by Dennis. Of a lot of people just went to the local brew pub you had, and you went with what you had there, and that was it. And there's nothing wrong with exploring more than that, but. Why do you have to run down these other guys? Just go with what you like and talk about what you like. You don't have to just because something new came out that you think's weird or whatever. It's just it's strange to me to be so full of venom towards all of that, especially towards a group that you're supposed to be happy exists. You're supposed to be happy craft beer exists.
And don't get me wrong, there are definitely beers out there that are terrible. That are, I think most people would agree that they're terrible beers.
Yeah,
but the sheer quantity of drain pour posts is like an inverse relationship to the actual number of drain pour beers out there.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I think every brewer would probably acknowledge they've made a terrible beer in their lives, in their brewing existence. They made something that's god-awful.
Hey, we have drain poured a beer.
Yeah.
The Lemon Crawler, we drain poured it.
It was really bad.
It was absolutely horrible.
But
it also wasn't we didn't specifically pick an elite, highly sought-after beer, go grab let me wait in line for 12 hours and grab a rye Bourbon County, drink one sip and videotape me, or videotape me, how old do I sound? Video me pouring it down the toilet.
Snapchatting you?
Yeah, it's just, it's like they do that on purpose with that. They're not doing it with some crappy one-off.
Well, and I think, I can't remember if this was the post-game last week or not with Dennis, but talking about, maybe I think Dennis might have been the one that brought it up, but I don't remember if it's on the show or not. He talked about how somebody mentioned that everything Franconia does is a drain pour, or if they sell Franconia, they're a terrible establishment.
Yeah,
talking about some growler shop, and that is absurd behavior. Like, we didn't say that Rogue was a terrible brewery.
No,
because of it. In
fact, we gave them 2 more shots after that. We did. We actually gave them good ratings.
We did, and we didn't immediately say that they're a terrible brewery because of it, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, you got to acknowledge, like, everybody has their hits or misses. Not every hit in baseball is going to be a home run.
You're very sportsy today.
I know, it's strangely sportsy today. But I don't know. Not every artist is going to make a legendary piece of art. It's just...
Do you like every song on every album of your favorite artist?
Exactly.
Probably not.
No, there's my favorite album. Yeah, there's a lot of not terrible, but a lot of just kind of mess songs I don't really care about.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens. And sometimes they have to release that beer because they can't afford to not release that beer because they don't have the funds. Sometimes I think maybe they think it tastes good and I somehow got out the door. I don't know.
Yeah.
But just to say, it's just to say it's a drain pour is incredibly dismissive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it requires no critical thinking. It's just something you can toss out there that instantly demeans anybody related to that brewery, whether you just like the brewery's beer or you're associated with that brewery professionally.
Yep.
It's just it's so incredibly dismissive. It just drives me at the wall. And every time I see it on the Facebook group, I just want to unleash fire and fury upon those people.
Yes, I agree.
Because, the guys that make that beer, I guarantee a majority of people that work for that brewery care about what they're doing. They care about the product they're putting out. And they are trying to put their best beer foot forward.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you dismiss somebody instantly with that phrase, and it is a plague phrase upon this industry, it betrays your ignorance. And it betrays the fact that and like all these people, ultimately you're looking to stroke your own ego on any of these categories. These are all ego stroking categories, but that one above all, I think, is the biggest ego stroke. Like, it's ego masturbation is what it is.
And it's beyond lazy. If you are a beer snob and you think that you know everything about the industry, give it a real critique of why you don't like it.
Yeah.
Just saying it's a drain pour is the stupidest, laziest thing that you can possibly post about it.
Yeah, tell me what you don't like about it.
Yeah,
because
even the Lemon Crawler that we did drain pour, we did say why we didn't like it.
Yes.
We gave several reasons why we didn't like it.
And honestly, as much as tired as I got of being, critical of beer and why we kind of pivoted away from that, I honestly did try every beer that we took on. I tried to find something about that beer that even if I didn't like the beer, I tried to find something about that beer that I liked. Because I think just about every beer out there, there's something to admire about that beer. Maybe it's just the label. Maybe it's the artwork on the label. Maybe it's just the smell, because we had beers that the smells were awesome, but the tastes were just kind of, didn't live up to the smell.
Or even bad, after the aroma was good.
Maybe they looked fantastic. I try to always find something, like, appreciate the entire beer and not just be drain pour.
Yeah.
because that is betrays your ignorance. You're an ego masturbator, and you're making the industry worse for it.
Absolutely.
So, in the end, do you think we're beer snobs? After we've gone through all that, do you think we're beer snobs?
I think we have elements of being being a beer snob. I also, maybe it's for my own defense, I don't know, but I do think that there were elements in that article that unfairly cast things as beer snobbery that are just kind of factual, or things that you just prefer, like the glassware. It factually does matter, and somebody being really enthusiastic about beer, if they keep it to themselves, it's fine. Or they talk to their friends and say, hey, I want a bottle share. Share with your beer friends. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I think some things on the list were a little goofy, but overall, I don't think that we're too guilty of the most egregious parts of beer snobbery, especially listed in this. Probably have done a few of those things on occasion, but overall, I would say probably 80% not. Maybe 20% there is some beer snobbery in there.
I think if we had gone on with the criticism too long, I think maybe we would have gotten closer to that. I don't think we're beer snobs. I think we're beer nerds. And I think there's a significant difference in that. And I still, to this day, Javi's been on the show before. He uses nerd as a derogatory term, even though he is a nerd himself. He uses a derogatory term, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with being a nerd about something that you enjoy. There's sports nerds, there's music nerds, there's there's technology nerds, there's sci-fi nerds. I fit into several of those categories. There's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy the thing, you enjoyed it, and you pursue excessive information about it, nothing wrong with it. It's how you betray or how you portray your knowledge and betray your audience.
Right.
In that I think that is the big dividing line. I think of nerdery more as an appreciation of a subject. I think snobbery is, going back to the term, ego masturbation. You're making yourself feel better by putting someone else down.
Yeah, or you feel like you're above other people, just in general. Which
is ultimately ego stroking.
Yeah, right. But I guess to that front, or to that end, maybe we're not. I guess the 20%, I would just say, some ways we talk about beer, somebody hears about it, would think that comes across as snobby.
Right.
But I don't think I've ever just berated somebody. I don't think I haven't.
Yeah.
Just been like, oh, you're an idiot for not liking this. I've tried to get my dad to try things. He hates all of it. Like, okay, fine. But I don't say he's an idiot because he won't change. It's, I don't know. There's a level to it.
I do remember, and we can, much like movies, we can talk a lot about a lot of subjects, and because we're just that smart. No, but I'm just saying, like, the things that
an ego stroke.
I think the things we enjoy. I mean, we can talk a lot about them: movies, TV, politics, or love or hate politics. And beer is one of those subjects. And I remember going back to Reddit again. I remember one of our early things is someone commented on one of our posts and said, "I would never listen to that because how can I listen to somebody talking about one beer for an hour?" And it's like, well, there's a lot to appreciate about there's a lot to pick apart about a beer, or there's a lot to appreciate about a beer,
right?
And if you really are interested in that subject, you can talk about a beer for an hour.
Absolutely.
Or you can talk about it. I don't think we ever went an hour with a review, but we could easily talk about something for 30 minutes, one particular beer.
Sure, absolutely.
If that's what you're into, it go with it. It's all about how you portray your it's all how you deliver.
I agree.
What you enjoy, how you proselytize, put it that way. Well, thanks for listening to Brew Bloods, episode 117. Thanks for your support. We do appreciate it. Thanks.
We may lose half our audience after this one.
We might. That's all right. I'm just going to blame that on Libsyn. They said they're reconfiguring the stats, so we're going to our numbers are going to tank anyway, so we'll just blame it on that.
There you go.
So if you enjoy the show and you are not subscribed to the show, you can do that for free. It doesn't cost you a single shekel. Just go to brewbills.net. There are links there. Or, of course, if you have a podcast app, I think we can be found in just about every single app out there. Just search for Brew Bloods. And it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to it. And
it definitely doesn't cost you to search.
It does not cost you anything to search unless you have a weird app.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're paying to search, you're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
If you have any feedback on the show, you can email us at brewbloodshow@gmail.com, or you can call us at 469-573-BEER. That's 469-573-2337. So for Dustin, I'm Mark.
Mark, I'm Dustin.
Pros.
Pros.